Christine, part 2.
I know.
I said we'd do part 2. I didn't realize it would take a year and a half later.
Has it been a year and a half?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that was like, that podcast we did, that was me kind of getting going.
Yeah.
And it's like 5,000-ish downloads now.
Wow.
Podcast is 100,000. So like, welcome back.
Yeah. No, it's great to be back. It's been nice kind of following along with all your content. Definitely enjoyed today's session.
Yeah. So for those listening, we've just had a whole load of people in a room in wherever we are, Shoreditch, I think we're in.
I think it is, yeah. Beautiful rooftop.
Talking LinkedIn. We'll maybe put some pictures around because like it's a rooftop garden, so you might hear little bits going on in the background. But I wanted to talk about 18 months, it might be a little longer. Was it pre-chat? It must be pre-chat.
It was pre-chat GPT, and I think it was when I was just kind of moving into a different role as well.
So that would mean actually it's more than 2 years ago. So we talked about your role. You started out, just for the recap, you started out selling photocopiers in KPMG. Yes. Bit of a difference selling.
Yeah. My journey in tech has been crazy. When you hear about these events, women in tech, I think sometimes people think it's like, I don't want to be a programmer, but there's so many different directions that you can go in technology, especially for the sales angle.
And last time we spoke, it was like adapting to a more social world. Yeah. Now we're in an AI world. What's changed about what you're seeing with sales for what you're doing? How's AI changing what you're doing?
All right. So this is a great topic. So from a sales perspective, I think there's different schools of thought, right? So there are the salespeople that are all in and we couldn't go fast enough. Their companies couldn't go fast enough. Then you have the other side of the sellers, which is, well, I don't know, there's a conspiracy theory around.
You're going to get rid of me and
the machines are going to come over and blast us all for not saying thank you, 10 years prior when they were interacting. So I think there's two different schools of thought. And I think there's also an interesting angle that I've also been saying with salespeople is that organizations that they're working with, if they are slow to adapt to Gen AI or the kind of AI in the sales process, they feel that company is not going to be around, and it creates a bit of a
flight.
Yeah.
Like nervous of, where's the future here?
Right.
But you're operating with some of the biggest tech organizations in the world.
Yes.
Is it easy to see how this is going to land? And I'm going to give you a really simple analogy, and it's probably way too simple. But for a time, there was HD DVD and Blu-ray, and they ran alongside, and you were not sure which one was going to end up the thing. It feels a little bit kind of like that at the moment, where there's all this possibility on the horizon, but we're not quite sure exactly how this is all going to land. Are you getting any insights into where that's?
And that's a great analogy, and I definitely think we're kind of at that point. You have all of these different platforms. You have ChatGPT, you have DeepSeek, you have the Google platform, and I think organizations are trying to get their head around what does it mean for them. And so it's, from a sales perspective, it's even more of a challenge because salespeople right now are starting, they're looking at the platforms going, okay, I can quickly put together these, complex proposals, but not really thinking about, is it authentic content? Right. So if you're putting something into a public domain, or if the algorithm within your own organization, if it's not properly trained, or if it's not, you don't have the right kind of agent structure and data structure around, you could potentially do damage to your organization if you don't have those kind of things in place. I think, geez, honestly, kind of went off on a different tangent there, but the original question.
They stuck between not quite knowing how all this is going to land.
Right. So the stuck not knowing how it's going to land. I think we're on the very beginning of that bell curve up. And while people are experimenting with every possible version of AI you can imagine, I do think that organizations, especially the services organizations, will start to look more on the creation of agents and how they deploy agents versus feeding into a company's IP and making their IP smarter. But it's more like think about like the rental of an agent. You think about SaaS, the way you have SaaS models and you rent the software. Your things are out on the cloud. For services organizations, I could see that going in a very similar
agents as a service.
Agents as a service, yeah. I think for sellers and for salespeople, I believe that there's going to be a natural change. Yeah. Everyone is worried about, is it the death of the salesperson? I don't think the salesperson is going to go away. I believe that the talent and how the salesperson behaves and interacts, I think that will change.
I had a conversation with somebody recently about the whole death of the salesperson. And we eventually agreed on it wouldn't be the death of the salesperson, but it could be the death of the SDR, where you've got kind of basically platforms just automating outreach and a salesperson behind that. That could be irrelevant.
Yeah, you can go both ways.
Yeah.
It could be SDR. It's a grunt role. And I was listening to something recently where somebody referred to it as kind of, it's not the rite of passage. But every salesperson at one point has to do that kind of hardcore. And it's a hard job, right? Generating interest out of nothing. That's it. And that's also a talent.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, with the SDR. Yeah. Often, I'm not saying in all cases, but often the least qualified people have to generate things, and the least experienced people, because generally it's your rite of passage, have to generate interest out of nothing. And it's probably their first job in sales.
Yes.
Seems the wrong way around in one sense.
Yes. But I think the SDR role, in the future of an SDR role, now with people have more access to more data, I do believe that that's going to create an even more informed buyer. You remember when there was this kind of progression where, I'm going to sound really old, but when people started actively researching things on the internet, the old statistic was, they've made up, they've done this amount of research before they even actually contacted you. Yeah. So it was looking at things like Gartner reports and this kind of stuff. Now I think then clients can actually come to the table with a strategy that says, okay, here's all my problems. Here's the softwares that could potentially fit the need. And they could even start to pin it down to exactly what part of a platform they need before they even engage. So there's the talent. It could go both ways. You need to have that hunter mentality and having somebody that has that ability. Or if it goes in the other direction, that kind of automated reach out and that initial interaction, that's all automated. But now you have a different level of a salesperson, where a salesperson now, we're still very much relationship. Yeah. And that will still...
That's not going away.
That's not going away. But what could change is, instead of having that person that says, I know, this person, that person, and now it's more... You can talk about the technology and it's more of like a technical sale, and you become more a technical salesperson versus.
So that could mean
leaning on a solution architect.
That could mean for a bit like when the internet did come out and people were researching more, they were better informed buyers by the time the salespeople did get involved. That in theory could move even further down the line, where it's like they're at evaluation stage and it's like, actually, we're just comparing. Yeah. So that could mean fiercer competition in one sense, yes, which means better human skills. But do you think that gives then it? Because very often there's my northernism, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if you get in early at the problem stage, you can guide them to a solution that you offer. Further down the line, they're already locked in on, we want to do it this way. Do you think there'll still be space to get in early with problems?
Yes, I do. And I think that's where that hunter-gatherer role is, that is the skill set of that person would need to change. They'd have to be more, it's more around finding the right prompts to be able to figure out in a client's annual report, where is the potential, where's the potential opportunity? And it's really more researching, analyzing that company to come up with who's the right contact, what's the right angle for you. So I think those skill sets are slightly different.
Do you think salespeople have that at the moment, that kind of opportunity mapping?
Yeah. Not all sales folks. And that's where I think the leveling up, especially if you're getting into a more sophisticated sale, the leveling of the skill set and the changing of how people are actually recruiting sellers, that is going to have to change. And so hence the kind of, yes, you need somebody that can be able to talk from a technical perspective. And now you need somebody that has that kind of visionary ability to say, I see your problem, but I can, in my head, I can see what kind of outcome, if you go down this route or if you go down this route, We test your models using, if you build your own agent, or if you're interrogating an annual report on, using Copilot or whatever your tool of choice is. That is a unique skill, and that is not a skill typically that is found in most sellers, unless they've experienced things in a consulting world. And
so you're describing a consultant.
Yeah. But that's because if you think about it, if you're a buyer and you've done all of this research, and now you have a seller that comes in, and if they haven't taken those, and now this kind of day and age, they haven't taken the time to learn about them, figure out where the problem statements are. If they're coming in and they're doing the whole kind of sales pitch 101, you're going to be tossed out. But if you come in a listening mode, you've done your research, and you I think we talked about this in the last podcast, you leave them something, right? Yeah. And sometimes that leaving them something is asking them some very specific questions that when you walk away, they're going to say, that person, they asked me this question. That's a great question. And how did they know to ask me that question? And what are we doing about that? And then before you know it, they're calling you back because they say, okay, Dean, you asked me X, Y, and Z. And it's interesting because here's what we're really up against.
I think as well, just on that, we talk about discovery. And often I find in discovery, prospects are in the problem. And so having that external perspective, one, you've got to understand where they're coming from. But I think we underestimate the power of actually asking them and prompting them to think about things in a different way, how much that value that brings. We think about discovery often as if I can get them thinking about their pain, agitate the pain, it might, make you progress this, the urgency, the FOMO and all that kind of stuff can move it forward. But actually the discovery gets them to think differently about their situation, which gives you more scope to suggest alternative solutions. And I think we've got to get better at that.
Agreed.
It's just, you're in the global consulting world, so you have probably having very different conversations in many ways. And I'm talking to a lot of sales teams where it's they got that problem, let's ask them questions. Yeah. And it's no, there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah. You're in you see this, I see this all the time. There's that one problem, like you said, the bigger picture. So if you solve that one problem, you're just solving that one problem. And salespeople can't solve everything. And also there's always a financial reason why, a client's going to know they got 99 problems. They're going to know that they have the 99 problems, but they need to solve this one.
Yeah.
But the difference in when they're making decisions to solve that one problem, or to say, okay, this is the first thing that I have to get, but how can I tie it into this, tie it into that, tie it into that? And that's where, as a seller, being able to kind of flip it and think about more of a consulting mindset. Still got to make your number, but okay, I'm going to help you today. But here's really where I see you could be taking us. And if you make this decision today to solve this one problem, our solution, our platform, whatever it is, here's how we can grow with you on your journeys. And so it could be that platform, for example, it might be the most expensive. And if they're buying something to solve one thing that is, and they're looking at it dollar for dollar, but if you're able to paint the vision of here's where we are, but here's where we're going. So this is an investment into the journey that you want to take, or we want to take with you. So, and I think, I hear and I see salespeople missing that every day because they're so focused on just getting this one thing, and they miss the big picture.
And how that one thing can link in. And I think there's something there as well about that, in that if you don't see that bigger picture, are you going to put a solution that actually conflicts with or makes another problem worse? And then that doesn't have legs. It doesn't go anywhere because actually it's a thorn in the side of something else. Yeah. So thinking about coming back to that AI, it's going to change the way you do sales. How will AI change the seller? What are those skill sets that we're going to need? I was going to say in 5 years' time, but it's maybe next month.
Yeah. So I think from a seller's perspective, because I use Copilot. I use Copilot for a lot of things, but I use Copilot in a sense of, and we talked about this in the last podcast as well. And I have ADHD and dyslexia, and a lot of sellers and people who end up in selling, they may struggle with the same things or different reasons why maybe they don't want to do a lot of research, or they don't have the mental bandwidth to be able to sit down and really think about, a client's journey. So there's a lot of brilliant sales folks that, because they're missing that ability to kind of get what's in their head into a framed form of thought, the access to AI tools now is going to level the playing field for a lot of individuals, I think, especially, individuals with different disabilities or different social backgrounds or different educational backgrounds. My grammar, terrible. I'm awful at putting commas in the wrong place and when to add a period, and but now I can move as a seller, internal seller. I can move much faster. I could say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's all of my resource. These are all the thoughts of how I want this to come out. Now help me. And AI is able to put all of those things into a coherent thought where it's supposed to be. And you don't take that and say, okay, now I'm just going to put that into, you take that and you say, oh, now you can become critical, right? Yeah. Now you can say, all right, I need to move this. This isn't valuable. This isn't. And then you keep running it through. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, AI does speed up the process for a seller and helping them to figure out their messaging. But it does in some cases take a little bit longer, because now you're, I always like seeing people go through the progression of when they use AI for the first time. You can always tell based off of and AI, if you're listening, AI bots, please get rid of, I hope this email finds you well. Oh yeah. Put together. The email is never going to find me well, but I can tell when somebody runs an email through Copilot, because it says, I hope this email finds you well. And I'm like, come on. But that's when you see the seller start to kind of light up. And then a lot of possibilities start to become real for them, because they are able to level set. They are able to be more meaningful and really apply the thinking based off of what clients are actually saying in their annual reports, what they're hearing out in the market, what the competition's doing. It becomes more of an analytical process for them. Yeah. So when the salesperson sits down and they're having that conversation, they're creating better material and they're able to be and show up more prepared than they would have in the past. And I think the seller that actually embraces that is going to rise above. And then the seller who has that, ability, that technical ability. I've started to create my own agent for something. Being able to create your own agent to run your own process. Because, also as sellers, we all like to think that we do something different and special. But being able to have your own agent to run your own process, that might take you a little bit longer. So you're definitely able to speed things up. Mm-hmm. I think there's also the other side of AI with sellers is the access for your the things that you're doing to be more visible in an organization as well. So there are lots of platforms now that have the kind of call recording, and it does automatic transcriptions. And, your leaders and your sales leaders now will be able to say, okay, well, why is Christine not selling? Like, what's going on with her? Let's have a look and listen what's going on in some of her call transcripts. And you can realize, you can spot the problems, right? Yeah. Based off of the way the conversations go, where you didn't have that ability in the past to kind of check in. It used to be sellers come back from the meeting like, oh, it was great. And, the client said this, the client said that. But if you rewind and now you can, if that ability is in your organization, you could say, well, actually, you're forecasting this to close for this quarter. I'm looking at, the actual predictability, and based off of the conversations that you're having, I don't think that this is we could actually forecast this. So there gives the seller more tools to be able to be successful, but then it also gives the sales organizations, the sales leaders, more tools to be able to check in.
I think it's interesting because at the moment, a lot of what you see is about volume with AI. And actually what you're saying is it's going to end up where it's quality. And so we may have less conversations, but they'll go further. Or we'll be creating, in one sense, you said something there, like we might spend more time doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's like the one thing I like about the call recording is like you take notes, but you miss a lot when you're taking notes because you're trying to listen at the same time. So I love going through my, like with ChatGPT and going, what were the key points here? Even the sentiment. So my call recording will say, prospect zoned out here. And I think that's really powerful on tonality.
Also, in a call, we're over, we are optimistic when we're having conversations with a seller. We want to hear certain things. And sometimes, and it's just human nature. Sometimes we want to hear something. And so when you want to hear it, you think you hear it, and then it becomes your reality. But I find that these, the call recordings from a seller's perspective is actually a way to kind of level set and say, did I hear that right? Like you didn't, is that actually a part of the transcript? Like, is my probability actually, is it actually worth forecasting? So I find that those are things that from a sales leadership perspective will give you lots of opportunities to help and coach those individuals as they're going through that journey. The other thing is that I do see a big, massive productivity increase on the horizon for a lot of, and I don't think it's there yet, right? I think, we're here about Seismic, but Seismic has their live docs and, being able to pull different things from different areas to create a custom deck. But I think we're in the beginning of something very interesting on the actual and presentation creations. Salespeople spend a lot of time putting together those types of things. Sometimes it takes them, probably more time than it should. Marketing is stretched. They can't spend as much time, having an agency, create a proposal every time is just crazy. I do think that as
agencies won't like to hear that. They
won't like to hear that, but there's still a role for all of these organizations. But being able to create that presentation based off of real facts that you've heard and put it into a coherent deck that is not riddled with loads of different words but is really kind of hitting the mark with the client. I think that is once that is where it needs to be. And I think, like I said, that is kind of growing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's where it is yet. That is going to be a massive improvement, I think, from the seller's perspective. Because it's so frustrating when you're trying to create.
And you want to do such a good job, you end up overthinking, does this need to be in? Do I need to even say this? Is it even relevant?
Yeah. And also, I seen a presentation recently. Somebody said, hey, can you take a look at this? I'm going to go meet with a CFO. And I opened up the deck and it was like 120 pages. I just said to them, I'm like, are you going to present like all 120 slides? Because if I'm a CFO or any
100, that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to walk out of the room. So, no, well, I'm like,
that's 2 hours at least.
2 hours, right? So you and it's with a seller in an organization that they want to. It's almost like their ability to be on. It's like a beauty pageant. Like, look at all of the information I can share with you about our organization, even if you didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
It's being able to
convincing role.
Exactly.
They're trying to convince.
Yeah, but being able to use AI to say, here's all 127 million slides that I'd like to bring. Here's the persona of the person that I want to talk to. Here is here's different news articles and whatever. Please help me cut this down to 4 key slides. And even 4 is probably too much, right? Cut it down to 2 slides that are really going to be impactful for this person. That is going to create massive value for the salesperson. And that's going to create, a trust that with whoever you're meeting with, is that he understands or she understands my role. They did their research. They're presenting something to me that I can understand, and we can have a conversation. Because at that point, you've done all that stuff with AI, right? Like your client has used AI to vet what kind of product you have now. Your agent SDRs, and you are a technical seller. You've learned how to embrace sales. You haven't been a seller, but now you are. And by the time they sit down with you, they know more about your organization. They don't need to know the founder and he was sitting in his garage. They don't need to know that. And now you created that bond. I think that it's going to be a massive improvement, and the experience is all around. But there's definitely going to be a heavy lift on the seller's front to embrace the technology, embrace AI, and don't take it at face value. You have to really interrogate it. You have to really not copy paste, make it your own, but use it as a prompt.
And just wrapping up, a couple of quick fire questions.
Yeah.
What do you think in sales generally right now happens that will stop completely? Is there anything that you see that will end?
Let me think about that for a second. I think the one thing that I can see changing almost immediately, is forecast meetings. I think if an organization adopts that technology, right?
Yeah.
I think the forecasting and being able to predict the potential outcome for you as a seller on the deal, I think that will change. I think the role, I'm just thinking about this.
AI will be able to predict the forecast. So you wanted me to...
You won't have to do that anymore. I think the prospecting becomes easier, sure. The hunter-gatherer prospect, no more knocking on doors. It's now a different lens. It's now networking, like real face-to-face networking. LinkedIn, definitely, I think that will play a role, but it's even still, I think it's on the quality of the content that you'll be putting out and making yourself visible to those companies that you're trying to do business with.
Do you think the sales role might merge into, it might absorb more marketing skill?
Yes. So I could see that happening. Yeah, for sure. So this goes back to the point of the sellers trying to create content because there might be a gap that's missing. Creates a lot of time, and you really do need to have that kind of multifaceted ability to create something that's beautiful, tell the story in a way that's not too offensive or not too overdrawn, but be able to somehow market yourself in a way that's not too bothersome. We talked about the famous LinkedIn messages, but still be relatable to every persona within an organization.
And how do you think the relationship, the infamous relationship between sales and marketing will develop? Because it should be aligned.
It has to be tighter, even more so now than ever. And I would apply this even to things that even in my own day-to-day lives. When you are aligned with marketing, I think there's more opportunity for a seller and for sales to be able to leverage the things that marketing are doing. You tell a consistent story. So being able to tell, what do you represent? What do you stand for? Your organization's ethos. Sometimes I do think sellers kind of create their own version, and that's not good either. So even more so, the two groups have to be corrected, especially because there is content and things that are being created that will go and live in eternity. And whatever you're putting out there, you have to think about the long-term implications that it could have to your brand. So if you're a seller, proposals sometimes end up in the hands of other people, end up sometimes, unfortunately, on the internet. You never know, right? And having those two messages linked in the same row, yeah.
A final thought: what are the skills? It still surprises me that there is no institutional training for sales. What do you think I keep saying the next 5 years, but it's like now and whenever, because the world's changing so fast. What do you think are the core skills a seller will need?
Yeah.
I was going to say in the future, but now in this changing world.
So I think that the future sellers need to think more, not opportunistic, but more strategic. They need to have a true sense of an entrepreneurial mindset. And being an entrepreneur is sometimes you have to create something that doesn't exist. And you have to be open to learning and doing things slightly different. Because at the speed at which technology is going to change and AI is going to change things, doing things the way you did 2 years ago or even 6 months ago at this point might not be relevant now. So you have to be able to be adaptive. And then the listening. So you have to be that is still remaining a good listener, because clients will tell you they will tell you everything that you need to know, and you just shut up and just listen to them. And then you go do your research, right? So I think those will be core skills. The other thing I would just say is looking at the ethics of how, your personal ethics and how you use these new tools that are coming out is going to be really important as well. So not landing yourself into trouble by maybe putting company information into a new jazzy sales tool, not realizing that actually you're putting in information that your competition was going to say. So I think it's being aware of the kind of compliancy things that you could come up against depending on the industry that you're selling.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be more rounded, and that goes back to the entrepreneurial sense, because entrepreneurs have to think of everything, as you know, being an entrepreneur.
And the interesting thing here is, and maybe we'll leave it on this note, but we're talking about how AI is going to change sales and how it will change the seller. We're still not 100% sure how it will change the prospect.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And the more and more we get disconnected from regular kind of human interactions, I think this is my opinion, and maybe this is just me being someone in their middle-aged group, but the more people are kind of disconnected from that normal kind of face-to-face, the less people want to hear all the BS that comes along. So I think that buyers and decision makers will have less time to hear and see all of the fancy graphs and to see it, because they will have already done that. So I think it's going to change. That bit will definitely change, because it's already changed. Like COVID, it definitely, it's changed things, but now even more so. I think that element will.
It'll go from give me the one pager to give me the one liner.
Yeah. Why you? Why you? And then that is where the personal relationship does come into play. Your personal brand, how you put yourself out there, because I'm sure that people will do their research into who is Dean, who is Christine. It's great. We had a great meeting, but are she going to be around? If I buy, if we make this big acquisition of 50 million and whatever, is Dean going to be around long enough, or are they kind of...
Is this just another sale?
Yeah. Is this a sale and they move on? Or is this person the real deal and they'll be with me as I implement something that might be challenging, depending on what it is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Round two, Christine.
Yes. Well, let's see. It'll be interesting to see if we come back together in a couple of years.
We might bring our own agents.
Yeah, we'll bring our agents. They just sit right here on the table, and we'll go off and have a beer.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for coming on, Christine.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Nice to see you as always.
Yeah. And to you.